Hello and welcome back to Good Germs Off-Road Adventures. Welcome back to the shop and welcome back to Billy Badass, our 2003 Sportsman 700 from Polaris. If you watched the last video on this, we took it out to Johnson Valley, Lucerne Valley, gave it a shakedown. Me and Seth took our turns, riding on this and Darth and compared them because they're not really comparable because that made a lot of sense. Anyway, we have a couple of bugs to work out. We've got a starter that needs to be replaced, probably the Bendix as well. We've got to fix the heat wrap on the exhaust. It's kind of come off and we had to cut some of that out. And now there's just a hose clamp just dangling back down there, making some racket. We're going to go ahead and change the belt. I suspect it could be slipping. I don't know if it is, but we're going to change it anyway because at this point, this is 2025 and that makes the quad going on 22 years old. Yeah. And just give it an overall look-see. How does it look? Is the power steering motor, is it still not touching the gas tank? Because that is something I am kind of a little bit worried about, given that people have had to do a little grinding on there and I did not. Probably check the oil, see what that looks like. Hopefully it still looks good. Check the transmission fluid. We did have issues with the front diff on this. If you remember, it was intermittently going in and out of four-wheel drive, which is kind of not the way they're supposed to work. I'm not going to do anything about that today because, well, we're getting ready for King of Hammers and I don't have the time to pull that thing out and disassemble it and rebuild it. We're just not going to use four-wheel drive while we're out there. Should be fine. I'm going to go ahead, get this thing up on a lift, get the floorboards pulled off both sides so we get access to the clutch cover on this side and the stator cover on the other side, which is where the flywheel is and the starter Bendix, and get the airbox pulled out, get the starter out. I'll catch up with you after the intro when all of that is done. Stick around. Well, you can sort of tell by looking at it that we've got floorboards out, air boxes out, seats over there. Anyway, we're able to go ahead and look at this thing and see what's going on. I think I'm just going to go ahead and start with checking the oil since it's right there and it's easy to get to. And we'll see if there's any surprises in there. I'm hoping not, I didn't notice when we were riding this thing that it was burning any oil. I never smelled anything like that. And I didn't see any under the engine anywhere indicating that we had any sort of oil leaks or anything around anywhere on the engine that indicates an oil leak. But we're going to go ahead and check it because these are definitely known for getting a bit of a warped head, blown head gasket, and well, you know what happens there. So let's go ahead and check the oil. I'm hoping that it's all fine. I'm sure it is, but let's check it out. There we go. Well, I don't know if you can see, but that oil doesn't appear to have anything in it except oil. Well, that's a nice thing. That's good. It smells good. It looks clean. Let's have another look at it. There we go. It's a little over full. I don't smell any gas or anything in it. We only put 2 quarts in it, but I'm sure that's fine. I didn't see any issues with any, oil spitting out everywhere, so I think we're good. And that oil, man, it's clean. So I would expect after only one ride of about 34, 36 or so miles that the oil would still be in pretty good shape. And it is. There's no evidence of water or anything else on it. Looks good to me. On to the next thing. Let's check out that power steering motor and see if it's still clearing the gas tank. I don't have any gas leaks, so we'll assume it's good, but we're going to have a look. So this is going to be a bit hard to see because we're looking kind of right back in there. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that there's still a gap between the bottom of the gas tank and the power steering motor. It looks like there is, but I'm also seeing some dripping, which wasn't there before. Now, to be fair, I filled up the gas tank on this earlier and I overflowed it significantly, sprayed it down with a little degreaser, and then, water. So there's all kinds of gasoline, degreaser, water mix. But anyway, I'm going to see what that dripping's all about. I'm hoping that it's not the bottom of the gas tank. However, it shouldn't be, because it didn't show any signs of doing that until right now. That should just be leftover water and stuff dripping off of things, but we're just going to check it out because I'm a little bit concerned now that I see something dripping. I've got an update for you. The plot is thickened. Yeah. In case you can't tell, I've had to take the front of the plastic off this thing and the gas tank because it just kept dripping. And it appeared to me like it was dripping from the place I was afraid it was rubbing on the power steering motor. In all actuality, it was because I overfilled the gas tank and the gas was coming out of, the vent. And the vent tube runs down inside the steering stem, and it was dripping in there around the top of the power steering motor and flowing right to the place where it would have been rubbing the gas tank if it was rubbing. However, it was rubbing the gas tank, but not enough to cause a hole, and let me show you. You might be able to see right here, there's a little bit of a scratch, but that's it, no leak. But here's the thing, if I had not overfilled the gas tank, as I sometimes do, if I had not overfilled it, it wouldn't have gone down the vent tube, but it wouldn't have just kept on dripping and make me take the gas tank out. And I'm glad I did, because now I can actually get back down in there with a little bit of a die grinder and clean up or round off the edges of the power steering motor that are causing it to leak. Let me show you what I'm talking about there. So if you look down in here where it's rubbing, it's right there. Just that edge right there. We're clear here. We're clear down here. We were just rubbing right there and just a tickle. Just a how you doing, enough to put a scratch but not go through it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and get a die grinder on that, round off that edge. And there's another one right above it. I'm going to round that off too, just to be safe. I don't want to do this again. Taking this gas tank out, well, it's not easy. It's not hard, but it's not easy. It takes some time, and I was not planning on this time today. Anyway, the other thing I'm going to do is replace the petcock valve. That thing. I bought another one. Don't know why I never put it on, but those things, if you touch them, they leak for some reason. So I've got a brand new one. We'll put that on as well. But let me get you set up over there. We'll get to grinding on that piece of metal. Okay. So I'm going to try to reach in here, grind off some edge there, and then some edge here, and try to do that without cutting this wire. That'd be fantastic. Oh yeah, that's working. That's pretty good. Now let's see if we can get this other one up here. A little bit more on that side. Yep, that looks good. I'm going to see if I can get a little more off that bottom one down there. I think that'll do pretty good. In case you're wondering what I'm using, it's just the glorified Scotch-Brite pad on the die grinder there. Let's see if I can get you in there for a little bit of a closer look to what we did. So we rounded off this edge right here, took the corner off, and did the same right here. That should allow the gas tank to fit back in there nicely and not have a problem anymore. At least that's the idea. I'm going to go ahead and set the tank back in there and catch back up with you in a moment after that's done, and we'll see if we succeeded, and then we can, well, put it back together from that detour and get back to what we started the video doing. All right, well, you can see we've got the gas tank back on and it's hooked up. New fuel valve has been installed, you know, sort of here. And I am happy to report that we are no longer really even close to touching the power steering motor with this gas tank. So I think we did a good thing. I'm glad that we pulled it. But anyway, let's get into the whole reason why we're doing all this, and that's we're going to replace the starter over there. And I'll just set you over there and we'll get started, and we'll just forget that we had about an hour and a half or so detour and messing with something that we shouldn't have had to mess with. But had I paid attention better when we were putting it together, we wouldn't have had to mess with it. Anyway, let's go ahead and do this right now. Okay. So I think we're going to have to get this brake lever out, which is just a spring, a cotter pin, and a spring. I mean, maybe we don't. Maybe we can just get, there's a bolt under there. We might be able to get at it without doing that. Anyway, these look to be 10 millimeter bolts, so we're going to go ahead and snatch them off real quick. Well, these bolts, they're not looking so hot. There we go. This is just a plastic, I think it's just a sound cover. Does this plug right here have to come out? I can't imagine so. There's nothing else holding it on. I guess let's take that out. I can't imagine that holding it in place, but it's an awfully big Allen. Okay, well, apparently that did hold it in place. Okay. Why is it so crispy? Okay. Well, shoot, that doesn't even hold that on. We could have left that on there. Interesting. Still don't know what the purpose of that is, other than inspection. Okay, and then we have two more I believe it's just 2 more to get this side cover off. Yeah, where'd the thing go? Here it is. Nice thing is all of these bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about keeping them, in a certain order. There we go. Thankfully, this is coming off nice. And also, thankfully, this O-ring didn't tear itself up, because it's going to want to set back down on here. And I'm glad it didn't want to tear itself up, because we didn't buy another one. And also, this is nice and clean. Oh, this thing is ruined. Yeah, that Bendix is ruined. All right. I was watching a video of somebody doing this exact job on this same exact machine, and well, this was all rusty in here. What a mess if that's all rusty, right? But this is a mess right here. That thing is not good. Okay, so a couple of things. We need to take the starter off from the top side, and then we're going to have to get a flywheel puller to pull that flywheel off the crankshaft there. All right, so to remove the starter, we've got an electrical connection there, and that's going to be of some particular size. I'm going to guess another 10 millimeter. Groovy. Okay, what else do we have? That's our positive to battery. We've got a bolt here and a bolt there. Probably both 10 millimeters as well. We'll just get something with an extension, them right off of there. There we go. Now, ideally, this should just come out. I said ideally, that should just come out. Maybe it doesn't yet. Okay. No, it should definitely be coming out, so we're just going to help it. There it comes. All right, and here is our old starter. All right, pulling that is a 21 millimeter nut there. That doesn't want to do it. More power on it? Nope, we got to go to a bigger impact. I'm sure this thing isn't needed, but we'll get it with this one. Very easily. Okay. And there it goes. And there's our magneto and the inside of our flywheel. I'm still kind of shocked at how clean all of this is inside. I was expecting a mess, but that's quite good. The other thing I'm looking for right here, I'm looking to see that key is still there. That way when we go to put the flywheel back on, it'll line up properly. Well, I can't remember the last time I've used a puller like that. That was exciting. Anyway, now we can get this Bendix out of here. And I suspect issues with this, because this thing just hangs up all the time. All right, before we get too far, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of grease on the new starter, you know, on this O-ring where it goes. I just think it's a good idea. Let's get some grease on there. Help that go in. Probably a little more than that. Okay, there we go. That seems good. Lovely. I'm also going to put a little bit on the back side of our new Bendix here around the shaft. There we go. That should be pretty good. So I think first I'm going to go ahead and put the starter back in, or the new starter in. I guess it's not back in. This starter hasn't been in yet. Come on, fit. Might have to tap that in from the back side. I like that it's a snug fit. It's kind of nice, I guess. There we go. Okay, and this one gets the ground strap. I'm a little bit afraid to go too tight. I want to break these bolts, you know. There we go. Lovely. And then back on this side, the Bendix should just kind of go right in there. And this one's not as wobbly as the other one was. It's got a spring there that seems to do springy things. Probably should put a little bit of grease on here too for where the case goes. But let's go ahead and put the flywheel back on first. Now, remember that key, it's down here. And if you look at the flywheel, you've got that keyway right there as well. So this needs to go on. Kind of, and it's magnetic, of course. So that makes it even more difficult. There we go. And that went almost all the way on. That's nice. I just need to put the nut and washer back on. There we go. Lovely. There's a torque spec on that, and let me go find it. All right, well, the torque spec for this is 58 to 72 foot-pounds of torque. Well, that's a pretty broad, you know, that's a big gap there, so I'm going to choose 60. And like I mentioned before, we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of grease on this shaft right here, because this actually sits in a place, whatever you call it, the cover. You know what I mean? Okay. I went to go put this cover back on, and well, this washer was sitting right there where that goes, so don't forget to not lose that. Let's put it on the Bendix. Okay. Clearly I've fixed the O-ring, it's back in there. And now we just put this back in place. And there it goes. Very easy to put that back. Okay. Now I'm sure I don't want to put much in the way of torque on these, so I'm just going to use the little 12-volt impact here. I think that's good. Okay. Lovely. Nope. Why don't you want to go all the way on there? There we go. There it goes. There we go. That's not so shabby. And now with the starter done, we're going to move over to the other side and do up the new belt. All right, so getting access to your clutch isn't typically too difficult. It's just all the little screws around the cover. Getting the belt off, though, can be varying degrees of difficulty. I've done this once on a Sportsman 500, same setup as this. I don't remember it being all that difficult. I believe I just kind of did something like this. And I'm trying not to pull this quad off the stand. There we go. And just an inspection on the belt, it really doesn't look bad. You know, like I said, I suspected it was slipping, but I don't see any cracks. It does look a little glazed around the sides where it actually grips. So that could be, neutral's nice and free, look at that. Anyway, does look a little glazed on the edges, so I think it's worth replacing, but I think it's also worth keeping this as a spare. What I've picked up to replace it with is this Gates G-Force Workhorse belt. OE number 3211091. Let's see if that's what's on the belt here. 3211091. Perfect. Now this doesn't have any arrows on it, but we'll just put the writing towards the outside. And I'm just going to kind of do the same thing to put it back. I'm just going to get it started like this and just turn it, I think. It may be a little bit more difficult because this belt, well, it's new and it's kind of stiff. Oh wait, this might work this way. And there we go. Apparently just had to spread the driven clutch a little bit and it just went right in. And now it's, well, it's got some play, which I'm pretty sure it needs to have that play. I'm gonna go ahead, get the front plastic gas tank, all of that put back together, mounted up, filled that back up with gasoline, put it back together. And I do wanna try to start it. We're gonna test the starter and we're also gonna leave the clutch cover off and make sure it behaves properly. Okay, well, we have most of it put back together. Of course, not the footwells, not the side panels, not the seat, mainly because we want to test out that shiny new starter that's back in there. And we want to have a look at that belt. So let's see how we did here. First, let's see if the starter is going to engage immediately like it's supposed to. Well, it did, but I suspect our battery is a little bit weak, but if you notice, it didn't spin, it just connected. Well, apparently we're going to do it again because it died. The starter does sound better. I don't know what that noise is. There we go. I think the starter sounds better. Let's have a look at this clutch thing here. Oh, that looks appropriate. Well, okay. I'm not mad at that. That starter does sound a lot better. Yep. Well, listen, I think that's probably going to do it for today. Obviously, we got to put the clutch cover back on, footwells, side covers, seat. All that's pretty easy to do. You just put the clutch cover back on, put the screws that go around it, and, well, it's back on there. And the footwells, well, you've seen me do that literally a million times, literally. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. We worked out quite a few of the bugs that we've experienced on this thing from the first ride, and I think it's going to be ready to head out to King of the Hammers in a couple of weeks. Listen, you all ride safe, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye now.